Hi guys, welcome back to day 3. A couple of things that I changed or just kind of fixed up is I fixed his hair, and then I added a little like stubble, like he had the sides of his head shaved, and then I also raised up his ear a little bit and I traced everything. So if you have a Sharpie, that's great. I used an ultra fine Sharpie. If you don't have to use a Sharpie. You can even use a pen. You could use a black colored pencil, but I would recommend tracing because then you're going to be able to see your details better after you color. So I think that this guy needs to be blue. So I'm going to do this one with blue. So I've got my blue colored pencil. The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the light values. So when we did our scale, we started with the dark and worked to the light. When we're doing our picture, we're going to do it backwards because it's easy to add later, but it's not so easy to take away. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to give the entire thing a nice light value. So I'm gonna literally color the entire thing with the exception of the whites of the eyes with really light layer of blue. Now if you notice I'm holding my pencil out at the end, that makes it so that I'm not able to get as much pressure, so it just makes it a little bit easier to keep my values nice and light so that they don't get carried away. Now, I think I'm only going to do half of the face here instead of the whole thing, just to save a little bit of time on the video. I know that the portrait part, the drawing part, you might still need to be working on that a little bit. So I'm calling this day 3, but if you still need a little bit of time to work on the drawing part, that's totally fine. That is the longest part. So if you need to take a little bit more time there to get to something that you're happy with, then do it. This part goes a lot faster, and so does the background. Now, I want you to do the whole thing, obviously. I'm just going to do half just to save a little bit of time, but make sure you do the whole thing. Got a little bit of a dark spot there, but I think we can make that work later. My awesome husband beside me is making bread, so you might probably hear the water running. All right, so that just kind of gives me a base to go from. Now, I think that I want my person to have had brown hair. If you're trying to make it look like you, then maybe you have blonde hair and you want to keep it lighter. I don't know. But I want to add some texture to the hair. So I'm going to add in a few darker lines here that kind of go in the direction that the hair would fall. Just to give it a little bit more texture. And then I also can go back and I can press harder in some areas, and that'll help give the impression of texture as well. And you can kind of make it up, or you can look in a mirror to help you with your own hair texture. When you're coloring hair though, the biggest trick, and I didn't do it when I did the light value, I should have, but the biggest trick to it is to color in the same direction that the hair flows or that the hair grows, and that'll help make it look more realistic. So on mine, did the same kind of thing. I just added some like darker areas, added a little texture, and then when I colored, I tried to color in the same direction, like so. I'm going to do the same kind of idea for the eyebrow. I'm going to use dark, short lines in the direction that the eyebrow hair would grow. And then I can just kind of color in on top of that too and make it a little bit darker. Give him some blue eyes. Press a little harder for his eyes. I colored in the the pupils with the black Sharpie. If you really wanted to, you could do the blue and just press like really hard, but you wanted them to be pretty dark. Now the inside of the ear is always in shadow, so I'm going to press pretty hard in here because that's going to be a dark area. Again, use a mirror to help you out. And you can make your value transitions gradual. So on the steps that we did for practice on day 1, we made them kind of abrupt. They don't have to be abrupt. They can be gradual if you just slowly lighten your pressure instead of doing it all at once. And I'm just adding in where there would be shadows by pressing a little bit harder. Don't have to go crazy, just a little bit, and give him a little bit of more color here where there's like stubble from his sideburns. Now around his nose, there would be a shadow as well, so I don't want to make this one really dark, but I'm going to give him a little bit. His nostril would be a little darker. Maybe under his eyes would be a little bit darker, especially if he spent all night up playing Fortnite. And you can see already that's really starting to make him look a little bit more dimensional. He's not so flat anymore. Down here under the chin. Make his lips a little darker. And like I said, it's a lot easier to keep adding, put more color in where you want it to be a little bit darker than it is to take away. Especially with the colored pencils, they're not going to erase for you as well as a regular pencil, or as easily. I also realized that my paper was kind of low before, so you can see now his shoulders and his neck is just down from his jawline, and then I added the shoulders kind of grow off of the neck. They don't necessarily connect right at the bottom. And then the shirt collar, I just did a t-shirt, just something really simple. Most people have some like musculature in their neck, so I'll add a little bit of a darker shadow here as well. And then you can, if you're feeling really adventurous, you could try to add some folds in his shirt. Play with the values there a little bit. Make his shirt just a little bit darker in general. All right, and that's pretty much it. So just take your time, look at a mirror so that you can see where the darker places are and where the lighter places are, and just try to push in some shadows. All right, guys, have fun.